Sir Tokolot is really quiet today.
You might want to have some waiting music on the background.
We missed the music.
Bob. Yeah, and Bob is here as well. So that's good.
Bob is here.
Bob is here. As long as Bob is here, it's okay.
Let's Bob do the work, you know.
Yeah. Well, after this webinar, Bob doesn't need to do any work. It's done for him, right?
Yeah.
Shall we kick it off?
Let's kick it off.
By all means.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar. I will hand over to Sir Tokolot. Sir Tokolot, can you kick it off?
Thank you. Thank you, Vincent, master of questions. My good apprentice in this one. Thank you everyone for attending this session. We wanted to kick off with let's do things different, right? Last year has changed many things for all of us, especially the way we worked. We're used to getting to an office, start our computers, and meet each other. Meetings were in packed rooms, as we all know. Coffees were fun, well, at least most of the time. And then one day, everything changed, and all of a sudden, we were asked to work from home. What we've called our second home were closed. We were forced to think different. And today, we want to discuss and present what this meant for Bob, the average IT admin, and the end user. What we all experienced. And we want to talk about the experience that we now have today from an end user perspective. And that's why we will change to different presenters in this room as well. In the spirit of doing things different, we will not have any slides today because we expect you all to be slides tired, right? Everybody has attended all those webinars last year, and we've all seen way too many slides. We encourage you to ask questions in the chat, and my moderator, the master of questions, will put them forward to me or one of the other presenters who will answer them straight on the spot. It's no problem at all. If we cannot answer them during the session, we will answer them during the Q&A. With that said, let's start. So my fellow presenter, Kees, is in the room as well. Kees is everything EUC, our EUC sensei, as we call him. So Kees, can you tell us a little bit more about how, as a company, we quickly made transition from office to home workers and what that meant and how you've set it up, how you can quickly make the transition, how you can keep things simple for everyone, for the end user who is at home, who cannot be approached by the IT admin because there's no physical access to his station, what it meant for his user data and those things.
Absolutely. Thank you, Raymond. So what we've seen during this pandemic with the focus on working from anywhere, not just home, but any location, any place, any device, was obviously a simple solution, scalable solution, but it was also easy accessible. Because like you said, we don't have control over the endpoint devices anymore. If people are starting to work from home, they might take out a tablet or like yourself, as familiar to most of us, on a mobile phone. So you want to support any form factor, but deliver the right performance. So what we've done, and I'll share my screen just for a second so you can actually see what I'm talking about. And Raymond, if you could confirm that you can see my screen, yep. Then I'll start talking. So I took the liberty to deploy a machine catalog. And what we're seeing here is Citrix Studio, which is the management interface from Citrix. And I took the liberty to deploy 100 desktops right here. So as you can see, just before this demo, I kicked off the deployment of these 100 desktops. They're non-persistent desktops running Windows 10. And the great thing about this setup is that we're utilizing Nutanix's own hypervisor, AHV. So as you can see, I switched over to Prism Elements, which is our UI, our admin interface. And we can see that we've got those desktops running right here. So to show you how easy it is to scale, I'll just add a few machines while we talk. And Bob, I heard that you've got another 100 people working from home. So let's just deploy another 100 desktops while we talk and see how fast that goes. I'll open up Prism Elements just to show you how fast we can deploy these desktops. And right here, this is the overview of the desktops that we already created. And as you can see in a few more seconds, we'll start deploying these desktops. And this is the power of the solution that we have. We're not tying ourselves into these physical form factors like desktops or PCs at the office anymore. We can deploy these desktops at any time, any moment, as long as we have the hardware to do so. And the power in our solution, in the Nutanix solution, is that it's easily scalable. It scales per node, which means that when you have defined a number of users per node, you can actually move that number forward in scaling your solution. So knowing that you have another 100 or 200 or 300 people working from home, it's quite easy for us to scale up because we know how many users we need for one node or how many users we can get on one node. So we can easily scale that up to the number of VMs that we need in the overall solution. Now, if we talk about the accessibility, like I said, I took the liberty to prepare a desktop. What we see here is Citrix Storefront, which is basically the interface for the end user to access their desktops. And what I did, I prepared a desktop, and as you can see, it's opening up a browser tab. So instead of using a client that I have to install on my desktop, I'm actually using the HTML5 integration, launching my Windows 10 desktop here, which is just deployed. So all in all, looking at the overall solution, it's easy to build as we deliver the tools to kind of set this up quite rapidly. There's tight integration with brokers like Citrix, virtual apps and desktops, but also VMware Horizon on vSphere and Nutanix Frame. And it scales pretty nicely per node, gives you the opportunity to deploy that as you go when users are starting to work from home more and more and more. And in the time that I've been talking, as you can see, I deployed another 100 desktops. So that's under a few minutes that we've deployed another 100 desktops, and we can onboard another 100 users working from home. Now, you'll probably ask yourself, but what about user data? Because a desktop by itself doesn't mean a lot, right? It's just a kind of a platform to access resources. So, for the application and user data, I've got Manfred aligned, who's our files Jedi. And I think you probably want to talk to him about all the goodness that we offer in terms of files and folders.
Okay, because the user profiles, right? Where are they stored?
Typically, and this is kind of a trend that we're seeing more and more. It's a good question, by the way. What we're seeing more and more is profile containerization. Microsoft just recently bought a company called FSLogix. And what they do, they encapsulate the user profile that previously was running on their C users and then your username. Now we're redirecting that profile to a VHDX, a file format, a VHD or VHDX, and that needs to be stored somewhere. And that's kind of the trend that we're seeing right now, is that people are stepping away from traditional roaming or local profiles. UEM is still used, but that also needs a file share to write their the configuration files. But the trend is profile containerization. And again, I think that Manfred has a good story around that. So Manfred, I think I'm going to pass the ball to you.
Okay, cool. So Manfred, so the files Jedi, let me show how we are doing this one. And let me share my screen. Just a second. So first of all, in the files world, I'm using one or two slides, then I jump into. So first of all, you need to create a file server. And that's the thing. I need to take care that I can provide file services for the user profiles or for the containers. And in the Nutanix platform, that's just a software service which you enable. You say, hey, that's my file server. I give it a name, how many terabytes, and then I say, hey, what's my network in here? where do I get the storage from in, and then I say, do I use SMB? And some of our clients, they even have some Unix clients out there still using, so you can choose, I use SMB, the Windows protocols to putting my user home files, but also share it to some NFS users in there, which we can do in there. And then you just say how you protect it. And you have in less than 20 minutes, you have a file server on the Nutanix platform. And this one looks really here, what you see in there. I'm live on the Prism element here, and you see our file server, so which we just deployed. We see what's the space which is used. Let me put in the Windows in here. We see the space. We see, hey, what's going on with the usage, how many files, how many open connections. So as Keith said, we don't know what's really going on outside. So we give you all the information on the file server, what is going on with the performance, how many shares do I have, what's the utilization in there, do I have an antivirus protection? So we support antivirus servers with the ICAP protocol. Are there some alerts which are always in the system so I can look into it? And what are the events in there? And you can deploy many of them. And this one really scales like you need it. But the key thing is really, it's just a few clicks away, and the administration, the management is really simple on our file services. But we are not stopping in here. We provide protection capabilities, the snapshots, which we manage from the HYCU side, the different protocols. But one other thing to show you is we give the information, what's going on with the users. Many times in file services, you don't know where are my data grows, what type of files do I in there. And for this one, we have the file analytics. That's what you see in here. There's a capacity trend. If it's growing up, down, you can explore the data. What's my hot data? What's my cold data? Are there different file distributions? What are the active users? So all this information is built into the system. So this gives you the control about it, but not stopping in here. So also on top of it, we say you can audit or you can even search for data. So we have sometimes in a help desk, you know, how many times does it happen when a user moves a file somewhere and you say, hey, I'm looking for this video file. Can you help me, Mr. Help Desk, to search the video file? Where is it? And what we have in there, we can even give an audit who accessed the video file in my place in here and where is it located. So even the help desk, super easy for them to find files if sometimes the user have moved them to a different place, or if you need to do audits and say, hey, who accessed this data at this time? You know, Keith mentioned it, different devices, access from everywhere. So you get a clear information who accessed it, which user, what's the rights, what's the setup, who did the creation. So all information built into the system in here. So really, you manage now data with the Nutanix file services. But we are not stopping in here. That's all about the information. But what about safety? What about security? You know, ransomware is this topic which we hear overall in the industry at the moment in terms of cybersecurity. So we have built in ransomware protection in our file server. They block ransomware and give you an alert. So that's already defined in the Nutanix shares if you go up there. So we block ransomware and secure the data for you out there. But at this point, that's all about the management of the file server. But what does it mean? Some of the things for an end user. So can you see my Windows desktop? So here on my Windows desktop, I have mapped a file server, an SMB, NFS share here.
You can't see the desktop, I'm afraid.
But is it not showing the desktop?
No.
Let me see. Do you see it now?
No.
Not. Do you see the Prism interface?
No.
No. This stop sharing. Let me restart.
Yes.
Okay.
There's a visual right now.
Sometimes that's what you do when you live. So do you see the Windows desktop?
Yeah.
Okay. So I mapped here a share for my Nutanix file server, SMB-NFS. I have a directory like my user home directory, Manfred. And you know, guys, storing documents, but you also want to recover the documents. So when we enable snapshot, we just say, hey, can you tell me basically previous versions? So I will see previous versions. I don't have anything. So this enables the end user to do self-service restores on their files built into the file server. So we enable the file server, the users to do basically their self-service restores. We enable the help desk to get information to help them finding the files. But at the same time, also the administrator has all the information in the file server. So all the day two operations, do you see my slides? Or you still see the Windows desktop?
Still seeing your Windows desktop.
Then I need to reshare, seems sometimes. So we are really live, that's what you see. So the date, now you should see the PowerPoint. Do you see?
Yep.
Yes, we do.
Okay. So update of the software, update of firmware, performance information, everything built into the systems. You can scale up the file server, give it more memory, give it more CPU. That's just a click away, basically. And then we have the file analytics in there. But what I said for me as an admin, it's even easier. The system gives me recommendation if something runs hot, if Keys adds too many users to my file server, or if certain projects adding more workloads. So what the file server is doing is says, hey, you may want to rebalance some of the shares inside your system, and you can do it even automatically. So the file server does the performance adjustment for me and give me the recommendation. I talked about the information if we need to do audits, everything built in, and we have the file analytics built in, but also capabilities to do cloning of the file server and the self-service restores on top of it. So this makes life easy for me as a file Jedi. And let me go back to my meditation arena, and I hand back to the data protector who shows what's happening in the backend of our self-service restore capabilities. Marco.
Thank you, Files Jedi.
So I'm in meditation.
Protector of all, HYCU reporting to duty. Bob is now safe. All right.
Yeah, Marco, in light of today, we need to protect ourselves, right? We need to keep things safe and secure.
Yep. Exactly.
How can you guys protect us best? What can you do?
Let me show you. Let me show you this. Now that I flew in, using my special suit, let me show you what we actually do. So let me log into HYCU. So as you know, HYCU is just a VM data protection solution, just delivered as a VM black box image running on top of your Nutanix cluster, right? And when I log in here, what you'll see is how can we now protect these user profiles or virtual machines if they're running persistent disk, for instance, as well. So with HYCU, you just deploy us in a couple of minutes, and what you do is in your sources, you're able to add what you want to protect. So you can add your Nutanix clusters, or you can add your Nutanix files as well. So what you add is actually just the Nutanix files, and HYCU then discovers all the shares which are there part of this Nutanix file server. And once you apply a policy, what HYCU does is we are able to integrate with Nutanix so-called change file tracking API. So what does this mean, change file tracking API? It simply means that we do not treat Nutanix files as a dumb share, right? We are superheroes after all. So what we do is we really integrate and do a snapshot of Nutanix files in a second. And then in another second, we get all the changed files from Nutanix directly. So instead of traversing the whole file tree and looking at the changed files, seeing what is changed, which can take hours and hours, we are able to just get this from Nutanix. We catalog all the data and we back it up. So what does this mean? If I show you here one of the incremental backups and full, right? So my full backup was 3.8 million files, right? Which were backed up. And if I do an incremental backup with, let's say, 15,000 files changed, in a classic solution which treats Nutanix files as a dump share, this would take hours and hours, because in a 4 million files, to find the change files would take a long time. With us, it takes, as you can see here, duration 2 minutes, right? These are small files, obviously, but the point is we immediately find what was backed, what needs backup, and we back it up. And everything is also cataloged. So when you need to do a restore, you can literally go in and select the files, folders, whatever you like to restore. And from there on, you can restore it back into your Nutanix file share or into any other Nutanix file share, which we will list for you. You can have different variations where to restore them, keeping the ACLs as well, preserving, or you can restore to any other share or simply download to your computer as well, if you want to download the file directly. Right. So the essence of it is also, as we were talking about, and as Manfred was mentioning, the essence of it is we do the Nutanix snapshot. So these Nutanix snapshots are triggered by HYCU and are also managed by HYCU, right? But the point is still, you have the ability to use restore from previous versions from these snapshots. So it's all fully integrated. And you can still have HYCU configured to maintain these snapshots and say, look, if I'm doing daily backup, right, you can have retention to keep the snapshots around for a week, right? This is something that applies to shares as well as VMs. And we are then able to recover directly from the snapshot as well, which is going to make it a fast restore. Another thing which is interesting and coming soon will be this backup from replica. Given that the Nutanix files can be replicated using protection domains for disaster recovery, this backup from replica will soon allow us also for Nutanix files, not only for VMs, that we are able to back up the replicated file shares, not from production, but from the DR side. But more about this in the coming months and weeks. Okay, so this is what Nutanix files is all about and how HYCU protects them, right? As you can imagine, because it's all snapshot based, it's all very consistent. The data is consistent, and any apps on top of this data can be also consistently recovered because it's all done at the same point in time, all the backup of all the files, right? And for the scalability perspective, we can deploy multiple HYCU instances, as we call them, which are data movers for particular shares and files and different file servers running on different clusters as well. So you can have all of this managed from a single HYCU and make sure that everything is fully scalable using these HYCU instances, right? Which can do the work for you. Right, so where is HYCU running? Again, it's running on Nutanix, and since day one, what we've been asked for is, hey, what if I have my Nutanix, which I love for production, what if I would use it also for my storage? And even since version 1, this is what we've been asked for, and obviously this is what mine is all about, right? And what mine v3 is all about, which was just launched together with Nutanix and HYCU, is utilizing Nutanix objects as storage target for HYCU, right? So what you can do is you can go to your Prism, right? Prism Central, and launch objects. I'm behind you, haha. So in the objects, you can configure the, let me show you here. You can create a bucket, right? The objects bucket. And what's good about objects is the way we write to the object storage cluster is really fast, even comparable or sometimes even faster than the HYCU storage. And the obvious benefit, apart from huge scalability from small to very large setups and targets in objects, is the fact that you can configure worm, right? Which is very easily configurable. And this is worm, write once, read many times, which is one of the most important layers in protection against ransomware. So you can just configure this on the bucket itself, and HYCU will automatically, when we create a target, be able to recognize, hey, this is the worm enabled target on Nutanix, and HYCU can just write it seamlessly. And another which is important factor in ransomware protection is not only that you that whatever is written can't be changed, but also that you can't access the actual data in the first place, right? And this is something you can do also in HYCU, or actually in Nutanix, where you can say, you can define access keys, and you can say you can define a specific set of credentials, which is then used using a key, right, in HYCU and only HYCU. So you give this key only to HYCU and nobody else. So by doing this, you get a through air gap protection plus the worm, which is two of the most important layers, if you like, in the ransomware protection. And obviously with HYCU being how does it look in HYCU, right? If I show you how it looks in HYCU, it's very simple, because at the end of the day, it's just a Nutanix objects target, worm target, and again, we can seamlessly write to it. But from ransomware protection, what's interesting about HYCU is we are not a Windows machine. We're a Linux machine running on top of Nutanix. We have the incredible simple upgrade, similar to what Nutanix does, where it's practically a one-click upgrade with a 5-minute process where we upgrade the instance. There is no agents involved in HYCU for any of these things, even protection of VMs. And at the end of the day, you want your backup protector of all to be very much in sync with your production systems. So what HYCU is all about with Nutanix, with our focus on Nutanix, with the functionality set and feature set we have on Nutanix, is what powers us from effectively being a standard on protecting Nutanix production systems, including files, VMs, applications, and all the goodness that comes from Nutanix. I think there were some questions. So,
Marco, what we've seen is that Case has spun up multiple desktops, right?
Yep.
Leveraging Nutanix files for user data where the profiles are stored, as Manfred has shown, with the previous versions. And you're protecting everything in that range: the virtual machines, the user data, everything.
Exactly. Right. So depending on, if this is a persistent disk, virtual machines, if it's just non-persistent, then the point of backup of these VMs is irrelevant, because you actually cover the user profiles through the backup of files. However, you can have persistent disk VMs, in which case you can go into HYCU virtual machines and again assign policies and protect the virtual machines in a very similar manner, right? With file level recovery, disk level recovery, application awareness, and all the goodness in it.
Cool. Good stuff.
Indeed.
So while we're on the topic, Marco, can I ask you a question from the EUC perspective? It's clear that you have all these layers available from the VM level up to the user data level. What about self-servicing? Is that an option where users can restore things themselves? Because that's obviously where Bob wants to go. Wants to do as little as possible in as much time as he has. So offering self-services to end users would, help him do as little as nothing.
Exactly, and that's a perfect point, Kiss. I love that point, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be as a Bob, as an admin, you don't want to be pinged and tagged for every little thing which somebody needs to do. If quick restore, quick file level recovery, application backup before patching. So what HYCU has out of the box is our self-service, which is actually ability, which was built with two main reasons, two use cases in mind. One, for the IT admin or the service providers to give access to HYCU to their customers and ability to do things on their own, or for bigger organizations which have teams of people, for admins, for databases, for DevOps, that again should have the ability to manage things on their own and protect their own environment. So what you do is you create a tenant in HYCU, you add users into HYCU. Obviously, it's integrated with Active Directory, and it's role-based. So you can have backup operators, restores, backup and restore operators, or just a viewer at the end of the day as well. And when you define this user and you add him to the group, the only thing left is to say, look, this particular share is going to be owned by my DevOps team, right? And when they log in, what happens is they will be seeing only the shares for the virtual machines which were now assigned to them and nothing else. And then based on the role which was given to them, they can apply a policy, do a backup, do file level recovery on their own as well, right? Without calling Bob, so allowing Bob to focus on more important things like defining strategies and defining targets, defining policies, where the backup goes. That's a great question, Chris. Thank you.
Very cool.
All right, we are 3 minutes over time. Sir, talk a lot. You talked a lot.
It's always the case. With regards to the ransomware protection, Marco, how easy is it to recover from that?
Ransomware protection, as you see, right? Recovery is as simple as selecting a share or a virtual machine and just doing a restore, right? But the essence of proper protection against ransomware is always in the fact that there is no vaccine for it. There is no foolproof protection, that you need to have as many layers as possible. And we talked about some of these layers, being a Linux, being really simple to upgrade so that you can get all the latest security patches always up to date, not that you keep prolonging the updates for 2 months because it takes a lot of time. And then you fall short of the latest update patches. The things like worm, right? Things like air-gapped solutions, things like with HYCU with snapshots, which we can keep and maintain on Nutanix, which is actually not only here for fast restore, but it's actually another copy of your data sitting in the production clusters. And should anything go wrong, and we had cases where customers made an error and their backup storage got corrupted because they exposed it to another Windows servers as a file share mistake, evidently, right? But in that case, there is not much HYCU can do with backups being corrupted as well. But what we managed to do then is to save the customers from these snapshots which were kept on Nutanix, because they are another layer of the another copy of the data which is kept here. And there's a bunch of other fail-safe mechanisms in HYCU, like preventing expiration and recognizing the change rate, changes in the change rates, and doing test recoveries in sandbox environment and all of these. So it's a topic of itself, but what's important to know is that HYCU and Nutanix together bring really a huge number of these layers that can get you properly protected against ransomware.
Yeah, may I add a point to it? Marco mentioned it. If you talk ransomware, a lot of times ransomware protection, ransomware recovery is only perceived as a technology only. I would encourage everybody on the call to build processes, how you protect it, how you train the teams, how you work with sandbox environments, so that you are trained in case of this one. And coming back to files, on files, I did not mention the capability to clone a file server and just virtually copy the data, create a new file server in a new network, for example, for ransomware recovery testing. So having your sandbox environment ready in a Nutanix based on a clone, separate network, clone of the Active Directory, clone of a virtual machine and a Linux machine. So you have a sandbox environment which you can do at any time. That's what we recommend many times. But it's a topic in itself. But key is also our technology can really improve and help you on the security side, but you also need to build the processes around it. And that's where also, when we reduce the amount of daily tasks, we can focus on these key important things.
Exactly. This is where simplicity is so important.
Exactly. Because what we've seen is that case.
Thank you, Marco, for the presentation. This is Mahmoud Wahab from Ahli United Bank, Bahrain.
Hi, Mahmoud. Thank you.
Hi. It's quite marvelous what HYCU can do, but I have like scenario that I got in my organization. Does it do mapping of the whole? You talked about files and sharing. What about the actual disk, actual like D drive? Does it do for the whole D drive? Move it to somewhere else. For example, if I have a production and DR, I want to eject the D drive from one server in projecting and production and put it to the DR in case of a DR test or
So if I understood you
whatsoever.
correctly, this is more on the layer of the virtual machine where you have a D drive and you're wondering if you can restore
Yes.
just a single disk, clone it into another virtual machine or another server. So definitely something you can do with HYCU. You can do clone VM.
On another cluster.
On another, yes, right? Because when you do a clone of a disk, right, you can select which disk you want to clone, which particular disk. And then you can also select on which cluster and which virtual machine in that cluster. So it can be one or another cluster, right? HV, ESC, it can be also ES6 HV. So all of this is fully supported by HYCU.
So it's doable.
I'd be happy, we can organize a call and, be happy to dive into more details into your use cases. It seems very specific.
To be honest, I'm not interested only by having a call. I'm interested. What is next? What do I have to have a demo on or a POC on my organization? Definitely happy to do that. We'll reach out to you then after the call. I'm sure that we have the data, your details, and we can get you a POC running. We have HYCU with tests with Nutanix test drive as well. We can get a really fast feel for the action. Literally in minutes, you get a full-blown environment and you can play with it. But we do have a POC as well ready with HYCU, and we can walk you through a demo. Good, great. So let's arrange this, and
Definitely.
we will see where to go from there.
Excellent. Thank you, Mahmoud. Perfect.
Thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation.
Thanks. Any other questions from the audience? We have Jedi. We have protectors, senseis. Jesus. We can tackle any question.
For the moment, yeah, I'm happy with what I'm seeing, but
No, it's okay. Thanks.
I need to show this to the management.
Yes, happy to help with that as well. Yeah, fully understood.
Yeah. And to recap, Marco, this is all included in Mine v3, right?
This is all, yes, part of the Mine v3 as well. Exactly.
So, Master of questions, do we have any questions left?
The master of questions didn't see any questions. So my life is a little bit like Bob after he implemented HYCU and Nutanix. Right?
Simple and straightforward.
Simple and easy.
Plenty of coffee time. Very good.
Exactly.
Time for meditation.
Right.
Great. I think we'll wrap it up. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. And
thanks for attending.
Also, Sir Talk-A-Lot, protector of all, Files Jedi, EUC, what was it? EUC Sensei, and of course, Bob. Thanks for joining this webinar, and all people who've joined. Have a great day, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.